Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. My name is Mike Gaudette, and today we're going to be doing a song bracket of one of my all-time favorite bands, the Beach Boys. Anybody who's been following the channel for a while knows how much I love the Beach Boys. They were a big part of my channel, particularly in the first 2 years, and I'm always happy anytime I can find an excuse to make another Beach Boys video, so I figured this song bracket would be the perfect excuse for that. So how this bracket is going to work is there are going to be two sides with 16 songs on each side, and it'll be just a typical process of elimination tournament until we get down to the final two songs, and then we'll have the grand reveal of what my number one favorite Beach Boys song is. And real quick, for anybody who is wondering why I chose the songs that I did, I wanted the songs to go chronologically through their discography, and I basically picked a mixture of some of their classic hits as well as a couple of B-sides, and I tried to match them up accordingly based on, what albums they were from. And these songs are mostly going to range from their first album up to their 1970s record Sunflower, and I know I'm leaving a ton of songs out, so for anybody who is wondering, why'd you leave this song out? Why'd you leave that one out? I do have plans of doing a part two of this because there are just far too many incredible Beach Boys songs to include on one video, but I did my best to include as many great ones as I could, and I paired all of these songs randomly with no bias going into it, so I'm curious to see where we end up with this video. And I'm sure I will have plenty of takes that you agree with as well as takes that you disagree with, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments, and yeah, hope you enjoy the video. So I think that's about it. Let's jump right into it. Okay, starting out with side A. Our first matchup is going to be Surfin' against Surfin' USA. This one, I'm going to go with Surfin' USA. I've never been a huge fan of their earliest records, but I do think Surfin' USA was more of an impactful song for them. I think a lot of people who don't know a ton about the Beach Boys, when they think of this band, that's the song that they most often associate them with. So, one of their big early hits. So I'll go with Surfin' USA. All right, Little Deuce Coupe and Shut Down. I'm going to go with Little Deuce Coupe. I think that song's a little bit more interesting, particularly in the vocal department. All right, Surfer Girl versus In My Room. Wow. That is a tough one. I'm going to really have to think about this for a second. The first two were easy, but these two songs are just both so incredible and such classic Beach Boys tracks. Wow. I'm picturing both songs in my head. I'm trying to see which one I find more interesting, I guess. But they're both so good. I think I'm going to have to go with Surfer Girl, but that was an almost impossible choice to make. But Surfer Girl was just such a legendary song from their discography, and I guess I want to say vocally it's a little bit more interesting, but In My Room is so good too vocally. I don't know. I have to pick one, so I'm just going to go with Surfer Girl, but that was almost impossible. All right, Fun, 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 and Don't Worry, Baby. Don't Worry, Baby is a perfect pop song, in my opinion. I'm going to have to go with that, even though Fun, Fun, Fun is also incredible. All right, The Warmth of the Sun and Keep an Eye on Summer. Here's one of our B-sides. I think Keep an Eye on Summer is one of their more underrated B-side tracks, but Warmth of the Sun is also, again, such a legendary Beach Boys track with just classic, Brian Wilson exotic chord progressions. So I'm going to go with Warmth of the Sun for this one. All right, next, All Summer Long and I Get Around. All right, this will be my first hot take of the video. Some people might be surprised, but I'm going to go with All Summer Long. I love I Get Around. Again, they're both just such great songs. It's hard to, have to pick one, but All Summer Long has always been one of those Beach Boys tracks that I have really resonated with. I love the vocal harmonies, the way the chords move, and just the overall vibe of that song. It's such a great summer track, but I Get Around, again, is absolutely incredible as well. All right, next we have Girls on the Beach and Wendy. Girls on the Beach, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated Beach Boys, B-side tracks. I love that song. I like it more than Wendy, so this one I'm going to go with Girls on the Beach. All right, and then the final pair-up of the first round of Side A, we have Dance, 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 and When I Grow Up to Be a Man. I'll have to go with When I Grow Up to Be a Man. That's a super cool song, incredible vocal harmonies, really cool chord progressions, the key change at the end, just an overall great and feel-good song. All right, so that concludes round one of Side A. Now we're going to switch over to Side B, and knock through these. So this is going to be from, like 1965-ish and onward. All right, Kiss Me Baby and Please Let Me Wonder, both incredible songs off of the Beach Boys Today, which is one of my favorite albums of theirs. This is going to get a lot tougher to, compare these types of tracks, because I feel like this is really when they get to the high point of their discography. But Please Let Me Wonder is one of my favorite Beach Boys tracks. I'm going to have to go with that one. All right, next, Then I Kissed Her and California Girls. That's an easy choice. California Girls is, classic. All right, next, Let 'Em Run Wild and Help Me Rhonda. This is going to be another instance where I do think that the B-side track, Let 'Em Run Wild, is better than their hit. Another, song that I think is one of the more underrated B-sides of their discography. One of my favorite tracks off of Summer Days and Summer Nights. All right, next, now we get to Pet Sounds, so these are going to be almost impossible to do, but I will do my best. All right, Wouldn't It Be Nice versus God Only Knows. Both songs are so amazing, but God Only Knows has a special place in my heart. That's one of my favorite Beach Boys songs, so I'm going to have to go with that one, even though Wouldn't It Be Nice is definitely a very close contender. All right, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times and Caroline No. Again, both incredible songs, but I've always really loved I Just Wasn't Made for These Times for a variety of different reasons. One of my favorite songs on Pet Sounds for sure. All right, and then next we have Heroes and Villains and Good Vibrations. These are both incredible tracks. This is another tough one. I feel like I have to go with Good Vibrations, but that was a tough one. I'll go with Good Vibrations. All right, and then Forever and All I Want to Do. That's another tough one. These are both, again, just amazing songs. I'll probably go with Forever, one of the great Dennis Wilson vocal features. All right, and then for this final one, I wanted to pick two tracks that were from the later parts of their discography. They're still very spread out, obviously, but just, post 80s Beach Boys, basically. So Kokomo and That's Why God Made the Radio. Love both of these tracks. I'll probably go with Kokomo, but those are both, again, amazing, tracks of the later part of the Beach Boys discography. All right, so that concludes round one of side B. Now we're going to switch over to round two of side A. So we have now Surfin' USA and Little Deuce Coupe. I'll go with Little Deuce Coupe. Again, the earlier part of the Beach Boys discography, I wouldn't say any of these tracks would go down as any of my favorite Beach Boys songs, but I would have to go with Little Deuce Coupe if I was picking between those two. All right, Surfer Girl and Don't Worry Baby. That is a tough one. Those are both just such beautiful tracks. But again, I think Don't Worry Baby is pretty much a perfect pop song, so I'm going to have to go with that one. I mean, Surfer Girl is a perfect pop song too. I mean, when I say that, it's implying that the other song is, not as of high quality, when that is certainly not the case. So I knew this was going to be hard going into it, having to compare some of these songs, but all right, The Warmth of the Sun and All Summer Long. This one I'll go with The Warmth of the Sun. Both absolutely incredible tracks, but I probably do like The Warmth of the Sun the tiniest bit more. All right, and then Girls on the Beach and When I Grow Up to Be a Man. Again, I think Girls on the Beach is such a strong B-side. I'm going to have to go with that one. All right, so that concludes round two of side A. Now we're going to switch over to round two of side B. Now we have Please Let Me Wonder and California Girls. As big of a hit as California Girls was, I think Please Let Me Wonder is the better track of the two, even though it's not as popular unless you're more of a diehard Beach Boys fan, but one of the greatest tracks of their discography, in my opinion. All right, Let 'Em Run Wild and God Only Knows. As much as I love Let 'Em Run Wild, it's very hard for anything to keep up with God Only Knows, so I'm going to go with that one of the great tracks of their discography. All right, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times and Good Vibrations. Love Good Vibrations, but I do like I Just Wasn't Made for These Times even more. There's just so much exotic stuff going on within that song from a vocal, instrumental, and melody and chord progression standpoint. Just, one of the great songs off of Pet Sounds, so I'm going to go with that. All right, Forever and Kokomo. I love Kokomo, but I do think the later part of the Beach Boys discography post-80s, I don't think most of that stands up to their 60s and early 70s work, so I'm going to have to go with Forever. All right, so that concludes round two of side B. Now we're going to switch to round three of side A. which will get us down to 2 tracks. So Little Deuce Coupe and Don't Worry Baby, that one is a simple choice. Don't Worry Baby, I don't even have to think about that one. And then The Warmth of the Sun and Girls on the Beach. Love Girls on the Beach, and it's made it pretty far in this bracket, but I'm going to have to go with The Warmth of the Sun. All right, so that is round 3 of side A. Now we're going to do round 3 of side B, and then we're going to get a better idea of who these final 4 are going to be. All right, next is Please Let Me Wonder versus God Only Knows. That's a really good one. I was going to say tough, but I have to go with God Only Knows because it's such an important song to me, but those are both some of the best Beach Boys songs of all time. That's a really good pairing. All right, and then I Just Wasn't Made for These Times or Forever. I love Forever, but I Just Wasn't Made for These Times is such an exceptional track off of Pet Sounds. I got to go with that one. All right, that concludes round 3 of side B. Now we're going to get down to our final 2. So the final pairing of side A is going to be Don't Worry Baby versus The Warmth of the Sun. Both great songs off of Shut Down Volume 2, but I'm going to have to go with Don't Worry Baby. Again, it's just a perfect song. All right, and for side B, the final 2 are both off of Pet Sounds, which is not surprising. God Only Knows versus I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. Now this one, I'm going to surprise some people, but I have to go with I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. As much as I love God Only Knows, there's just something about I Just Wasn't Made for These Times that has always really resonated with me. Like I had mentioned before, musically, there's so much cool stuff going on, but also lyrically, just kind of feeling out of place with the world that you are living in. I think that's something we can all relate to, especially nowadays. So it's a song that just has always really, just hit home for me. So now our final 2 tracks are Don't Worry Baby and I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. So some people might be surprised that these ended up being the final 2, but these are the tracks that I love. So I think I'm going to surprise some people with my number 1 choice. I'm sure most people think I'm going to go with Don't Worry Baby, but I'm actually going to go with I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. I think that is my number 1 favorite Beach Boys song, which is not the most common choice. I think a lot of people oftentimes do pick a track off of Pet Sounds as their number 1 spot, but usually it's going to be, God Only Knows, Wouldn't It Be Nice, one of those types of tracks. But this track in particular, like I said, I've just always loved it so much. There's so much stuff going on. You can look up this song on YouTube, just type in I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, vocals only. And the amount of cool stuff that's going on in the vocal part, particularly in the pre-chorus and then the chorus, just creates such a powerful sound with so many layers and just such a beautiful but also heartbreaking song about, just feeling out of place in the world that, you were born into. And I think that's something that Brian Wilson experienced a lot. And I think it's just a commentary as to where his head was at that time. And like I said, I think it's something we can all relate to. So not one of the more upbeat and happy Beach Boys songs by any stretch, but I think that's why I like it so much. I think it's a little bit out of the ordinary. And just one of the great songs to come off of Pet Sounds, which I think is their best album. So that is my favorite Beach Boys song, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. And anybody who has been following my Beach Boys videos over the past few years, I did a Beach Boys podcast a while ago. In the first episode, we went through our top 10 favorite Beach Boys songs, and back then I had also said this was my number 1 track. So some people might have seen this coming if you've already seen that video, but for anybody who is new to the channel, this is my favorite Beach Boys track. So that concludes the first bracket video, first of many that I'm going to keep doing for different artists and bands. And I will be back with a part 2, so don't worry, because I know there are a lot of Beach Boys songs that I left out of this one, but it was impossible to include all of them because they have such a large discography with so many classic tracks. But I definitely will be back with a part 2 to narrow down some other tracks. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and feel free to check out some of my other videos. I have a bunch of album tier lists ranking different bands' discographies, and I have a series called Top 5 Albums, where I go through my 5 favorite albums from every year. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, in addition to my Beach Boys guitar covers, I will have links to all of that in the comments and the description, so be sure to check those out if you're interested. But thanks for tuning in. I hope this bracket video was enjoyable, and stay tuned for many more of them. So I will see you at the next video. Take care.